Thank you for giving us your time today. And actually, just before we start, thank you for everything else you've been doing in this, shall we say, interesting time that we've had. This is just the first of the sessions, and we thought it best to start with a small dose of how to stay motivated, so you'll hopefully feel spurred on to come to the rest of the sessions as well. I'm Silver, and this is the lovely Chloe.
Hello.
Who will also be helping with the session. I guess our main goal for you by the end of this session is to feel super motivated, or at least feel like you can get super motivated. So you might feel like this at the moment. If you don't know who this character is, I strongly urge you to watch Bug's Life, for well-being and entertainment purposes mostly, not so much revision. But also because it's a fantastic film that hopefully enough of you are old enough to recognise anyway. But back to why this has even been brought up in the first place. Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like an adorably chubby caterpillar on the inside, basically all the time, dreaming of one day becoming a beautiful butterfly, or in this case, a competent doctor. And just like Heimlich, yes, that is the caterpillar's name, which might be a sign is all I'm saying, it can be really hard sometimes when you feel like you're putting all this work in and so much time, yet it seems like you're not really getting much out of it. But, well done you, because you're basically there. Whether you want to admit it or not, you've got into medical school, you've endured, and you're a finalist now, aka essentially doctor. So well done. And actually, well done in general for everything you're putting up with, dealing with all the manicness of the time, and truly just being who you guys are. Chloe said that she's seen lots of you in hospital, and you've been amazing, isn't that right?
Yep, so I have. And the people I've been seeing have been absolutely superb. Considering that you guys, a lot of you haven't actually got any caring experience, you've really jumped in and taken on a role that we aren't trained for. And honestly, it's only going to make you guys better doctors in the long run. And being willing to join now at like the scariest time in the NHS's history, you've got to give yourself big. It might not be what we had planned for any of us, but we can make the most of what we can do in a minute. And so that's what me and Silver are going to try and focus on with you.
And on that, we're going to take two kinds of plans of action here. We've both realised in putting this together that whilst we are very similar in thoughts of how to stay motivated, in some ways we're on different ends of the spectrum. So my stuff is more focused on mentality, and Chloe's is much more practical and really helpful. So here we go. And the first thing I want to say is start at the end. I'm not saying this for an Instagram-worthy, Tumblr-esque quote, but I genuinely mean start at the end in terms of what you're aiming for. As medics, we're so used to having to think about the next stage, and then the next stage, and then maybe the stage after that. And whilst in a way it gets the job done, I've come to realise it might not be the best way to go about things. So, first think, what is your big dream in medicine? And your go-to answer might be, I just want to pass finals, which is okay. But actually, I'll ask you to dream bigger than that. Think bigger than big. Once you pass finals, what is it you want to do? Do you have a speciality in mind? An effect you want on people's lives or the world? Do you see yourself as a consultant with lots of happy patients around you? Or maybe can you see yourself being the next big thing in medical science? What is it, and does it seem basically impossible? Because if it does, that's good. And I mean that, because if it doesn't feel at least a bit impossible now, then it's not a dream, it's just a thought. In which case, it's not really much to aim for at all. So if it actually feels like you have almost no idea how to go about it, that's a great starting point for a big dream of yours. And then we can set manageable points to get there, keeping our eyes fixed on it. And you don't necessarily have to know how to get from point A, where you are now, to point B in the far distance, because stuff happens. I'm sure many people had thoughts about where they'd be right now, and a global pandemic was not part of the plan. But it's okay. If you can keep point B in mind, then you know where you're aiming to get to, and it doesn't really matter how you get there, because you can always change the path if you need to. The destination is still the same. So, first tip, start with the big thought. And actually, I was discussing with a friend recently how mood boards need to start coming back into people's minds, because it's essentially a physical portrayal of this. Now, don't get me wrong, I used to be the kind of person who would scoff at what I'm saying right now, and just be like, what are you talking about? But I did eventually succumb to making one in second year, with my big medical dream in the middle, and all the other life stuff around it, like passing my driving test, etc., because they are importantly involved too. And I've got to say it's pretty effective, even when I didn't really believe in it, and I haven't got all the answers why. One I do think is that I put it as my tablet background, so I would see it all the time, and maybe subconsciously be manifesting what I wanted to happen, who knows. And what is clear is that having big goalposts to set oneself is really helpful, because you're not stressed about the tiniest minutiae of how to get from where you are to the next micro step on a rigid path, hopefully leading to where you'll end up, but instead focused on where you want to be, so you'll always be headed in the right direction. Anything else to add there, Chloe?
No, I think that's brilliant.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
So the next tip, which kind of overlaps between mine and Chloe's, is where is your locus? I'm sure enough of you have been to enough well-being chats and mindfulness sessions the like in med school, and they tend to talk about this locus of control quite a bit. I'm going to bring it up again, just a little, and it's a sense of one being an external and one being an internal locus. So let's say something happens, and a person can have an external locus of control response, which means they'd be like, something has happened to me. I have no control over that whatsoever. Or you can have an internal locus of control response, which is more like something has happened. What can I do to fix it? And what can I do to prevent it next time? And actually, whilst this might seem quite simplistic, it's really important to know where your locus of control is, and try and make it as internal as possible without becoming self-blaming. Because if the only thing stopping you is you, then there's nothing really you can't achieve. So try to see what it is that you can be doing now. Obviously things are really hard at the moment. You can't go into med school, can't really go into hospital, and it can be super difficult to try and study from home. But try to find the little things you can do, which can help you feel like you have a little bit more control in the situation. It might not be everything, but it can then give you some more of a foundation, so you feel sturdy enough to continue, even if it is just one day at a time. Then the more of these little things you find that give you that sense of an internal locus of control, the more motivated you'll be to keep doing these things and finding new ones. So with that in mind, something me and Chloe realised is that you're not actually behind. I've spoken to quite a few of you who've worried about this, and it's understandable that from where you're looking, comparing yourselves to our year doing this and that in hospitals this time last year and whatnot, whereas you guys can't set foot anywhere to do anything school related at the moment, you might feel like you're missing out on something. But you're actually not behind now. I was trying to think of what I was doing this point last year, and whilst finals was kind of on my mind, I wasn't really doing anything about it. Maybe I should have been. But then also, it still worked out, and I passed them, so I guess it was fine. And you guys have been given the gift of time, because you have the time, even if it is by force, to read books for things you don't fully understand. Look into things that might come up, which you'll be grateful for later, especially as with finals revision, you'll come to know is mostly question work and book work, so the more time you have, the better. Don't worry, you're not behind, and there's plenty of stuff you can do now, which will come on to you later, that can help you stay in that position, and make sure you don't get behind now. If you're telling yourself already that you're super behind, and there's no way to go forward, then you're not going to be able to make it ahead in the end. So you're genuinely fine. Take a breath. You're not an F1 yet, and you've got plenty of time. Another point is that you've got to try. I've also heard things from your year about deciles as they came out recently, and people have been feeling deflated. But I say this from the absolute bottom of my heart. They don't actually mean that much. And by that, I mean basically they don't mean anything. Especially for you guys, because you've already got degrees, so you've already got a few points on your back, which technically brings your decile points up. And even if you didn't, it still wouldn't matter. And most of your points actually come from SJT anyway. And even if you're still a low decile, it doesn't mean you can't get to where you want to be. I know both me and Chloe didn't necessarily get the note, but I still ended up at my first choice AFP, and I never thought that would happen with my decile.
Exactly. And so just to capitalise further on what Silver's saying, I'm happy to break down sort of what I got. So I was 8th decile, which wasn't superb. I was very, very panicked when I found that out. But I'd got 4 extra points because of my masters and 1 more point because I'd managed to publish 1 paper. So I managed to get 41 out of 50 for my academic side. And then for SJT, so everyone knows that I'm not always not sarcastic, basically. I'm a highly sarcastic person, but answer how SJT wants you to answer. So I still managed to get 41 points from my SJT, which gave me a total of 82 out of 100, which when you take 82 out of 100, you think, yeah, that's not too bad. But actually, everyone in my year, it felt like it got more than me. And it absolutely panicked the living socks off me. And so I wanted to go back to Birmingham, which is very, very competitive to get into. It's like the 2nd or 3rd most competitive after London boroughs, really. And so I was thinking, God, do I even bother trying to go? Because with that score, I'm not going to place high enough, really, to get any jobs that I wanted. So I thought, well, I can completely reassure you that not only did I get Birmingham, but I also got basically the 2nd job that I wanted. So I managed to get all of the rotations that I wanted at 30 minutes from my door, because I can stay in my house, I can achieve everything I want to. And actually, it worked out probably better than I could have thought of in the first place. So actually, don't let yourself get knocked down with the deciles. Don't let yourself get knocked down with, oh, my friend's got 90. My friend got 92. One of them did. It doesn't actually matter. It all comes down to what you want to do, and you're not actually going to get to them if you don't even try in the first place. So park it, focus on what you can do something about, and just pass primarily. Like, it doesn't matter what job you get allocated if you don't pass. So let's focus on getting you past. Let's focus on getting you strong and healthy and good doctors, not good people at passing exams. I think that's going to be the most important thing for everybody. Silver?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you've said. I think it's great. And see, there's no reason why you can't have similar achievements to what we've both had. But based off of that, Chloe's got some amazing tips for success. So I'm passing it over to you, Chloe.
Okie doke. So essentially, if you are in hospital currently, if you've taken up one of these caring positions, if you've gone back to a job that you were doing before med school, you're already still doing something. You're still clinical. You can still learn by looking at what we do, looking at what F1s are doing, F2s are doing, higher, and basically look and ask yourself, do you think that person is a good doctor, and why? What is it that's making them a good doctor? Is it their communication skills? Is it their manner? Is it that when they put in a cannula, they go in quickly, they go in slowly, they warn the patient, they don't? Look and see what actually works for other people, because that can then help you adjust your practice in the future. So I know that I've spent a lot of time watching other doctors and thinking, okay, I want to be like them when I'm an adult doctor. Or, you know what, I would never do it that way. And use this time now to watch and to learn and observe. And as well, remember that you're essentially learning stuff that is vital for exams. In OSLAs, 1/5 of the points, so one of those whole sections of OSLAs is on patient relationship. You're currently learning how to interact with patients, and how to interact with them in a way that's not just, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. It's not a stiff upper lip approach anymore. It's asking them, who's at home? It's asking them, okay, oh, you've got a dog, so have I. It's finding those commonalities and making them seem less scary, because that's what's going to get you the good points, and that's what's going to help you to drag up like their opinion of you. So, for example, I went into one of the Oslers and I couldn't even spell the condition. Like, the patient had to spell the condition to me. Genuinely, that's how bad it was. And yet I didn't get a single negative point on that Osler station. Not because I knew what I was talking about, I didn't, but because I was talking to the patient, and because I made the patient feel like I was at least going to find out and at least going to put in that effort. And that's what's going to be most important. And that's what you can still focus on now. So coming on to what you can achieve being good people, and good people, like people, if that makes sense. So practice your social skills, practice talking to people, practice going up to that delirious patient and helping calm them down, practice reassuring people, practice making sure, like doing a thought assessment, watching somebody having a drink and noticing that actually they dribble their tea. Okay, what does that tell you? What does that mean I need to consider doing? Make sure that you're sort of focusing on what you can achieve, not on what you're missing out on. Because yes, you are going to go back to specialist blocks. It may be shorter, but you're still going to get that specialist experience. You may just not get as much of it as some of the years. Going forward though, what you can do is set yourself these achievable targets. So what I would focus on personally is the core measurable knowledge. So that is your GP block, learning objectives, your acute block, learning objectives, and your core medical block objectives, basically. If you can get all of those down whilst you're still off, I can tell you now, you won't be behind, you won't be up to date, you will be ahead, because they have the biggest emphasis in the whole course. So if you can start working through those. So what I do personally, at the start of each block, I know it's going to be slightly different for you guys, so at the start of each 6 weeks, I calculated how many learning objectives I needed to cover per block, divided them by 6, and then made sure that I achieved, say, 8 or 9 presentations every week. If I did more, perfect. If I did less, not good. I know I need to pull my socks up, and I know that I need to keep up with that basic minimum, because then I'm making sure that I'm staying up to date on my book learning, as well as working, as well as going and getting all this clinical exposure. So it stops you guys from panicking, and it reminds you actually how much you need to be doing per week. So what I would do was I would set out kind of okay, I want to cover 5 topics per week, and make sure that you cover those 5 well and you understand them at the end. Understanding is the biggest thing for final years, because it's not just about regurgitation anymore. On Anki, if you just use Anki, yes, you're going to know that, for example, PSC is linked to UC. In the real world, you need to be able to identify what PSC is, identify how that patient presents, understand how they're going to be feeling, what symptoms they're going to be reporting, how to investigate that, and then how to treat it. It's not just as simple as one link thing anymore. It's very much an understanding of the overall presentation and that overall patient as a whole. So focus on understanding and applying that to any patients that you do get to see that come into your ward. Okay, but apart from that, just break it down into little chunks. You guys are still ahead. I can tell you now that at this stage last year, I was hiding. I was working 25-hour week outside of university, as well as doing all the core medical. And I can tell you now that I was probably far behind where you guys are now. So really don't panic. You've got so much time. Everything is different. I'm not going to lie to you. It's very different now. But you can still do this. Just focus on breaking it down and focus on what you can learn right now. Silver, anything to add?
Not really. I think I agree with everything you said. I will say though that in my 3rd year, I did say I'm not going to revise and chose to focus on building up my academic portfolio and blah blah blah, which in some ways might not have been the best idea because it crossed over into my 4th year, so I didn't really get into proper revision mode until February, which was after my AFP interviews and all of that. But, I mean, I still managed to get through, so it is possible. And in terms of watching other doctors, I found I worked best being in hospital and absorbing what I was seeing. So if you are someone who does that, and using flashcards is the bane of your life, which I won't lie, whilst Anki is great, we have a love-hate relationship. Use your final year as a great opportunity when you get back in there. You guys get the run of the hospital. Everyone is going to say no to the first year because there's a finalist here who wants to learn something, and then explain things really well for you. So please use this while you've got it.
Definitely. And remember as well, you guys are helpful. Like you've got skills that you can use, so use them. Have some confidence and use them. And if, say, we're on ward, come up to us. I know that a couple of you guys have been, and ask to do that cannula, ask to do that ABG. Like, we'll happily let you. Trust me, we're doing like 10 a day at the minute, so knock yourselves out.
So this has been a relatively short session because hopefully you've already got quite a lot of this down. But remember to take a breath. It is fine. You've got time. You've got the brains, you've got the skills. Every single one of you has beat out multiple people to be sitting where you are. Not only to get into medical school, but also to make it through. No, passing your first year exams was not a fluke. Passing your second exams was not a fluke either. This is something I had to remind myself a lot. The medical schools don't want people who just fluke, and they make sure of it. So if you were, you wouldn't be here right now. So you've got it, and you can do it. If you've got nothing else to do at this time but relax, then relax. From what I hear with SCPs becoming 5-week blocks, this is going to be an intense year for you. So try to keep up your energy stores as much as possible. And even for us guys, well, I don't know about Chloe, but my third year SCPs, I was exhausted by Christmas.
I was like dragging my heels. So
Definitely.
it's
And bear
probably,
in mind, some SCPs are going to be far more intense than others anyway. So, for example, for ONG, I was doing 12.5-hour days, 5 days a week, just because the experiences were there. So some of them are going to be intense. GP is intense. Acute can be intense. MSK, if you're keen, they will make it intense. If you're not, they'll leave you alone. But bear in mind that, as Silver says, this is a marathon. So for exams, the only exam I've ever failed at medical school was our last one, which was the PSA. And that was because we've been doing exams for more than 3 months. And I was so mentally done that I just couldn't do it anymore. So make sure that you do pace yourselves, especially in this current climate. Don't let yourself get burnt out yet. You've got plenty of time to achieve this, and you will achieve it.
Definitely. And yes, please believe in yourselves. You're a clever year, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I know we all poo-poo our own medical schools, but it cracks out great doctors. So it's important to remember that, and to remember that you are becoming a doctor. And so like Chloe said, this is really about understanding, not about regurgitating. We'll come into this in some of the other sessions, but our finals exams, some of those questions were like, what are you doing to me? I feel like an F1 shouldn't even be anywhere near this situation in the first place. But on reflection, they weren't necessarily difficult questions all the time. It was more, have you thought about what else could happen? Do you know what you need to be looking for? And to be honest, yeah. Remember, you're just trying to get to F1 level right now. You'll be massively supported, and accordingly, the expectations of you aren't massive. So don't let it be scary. Remember, medicine is supposed to be fun.
Right then, thanks for listening very much, guys. Okay. And has anybody got any questions? Because we can't see the chat function, unfortunately. So if you unmute and ask any questions you want to. So I'm taking any questions. If there is any, please do feel free to contact us on Facebook, okay? If you need us, okay? So please do still message us, and we are still able to help with anything. Okay, and if I do forget something, or if Silver does forget something, just keep on texting us, because we are sort of F1 mentality at the minute, and yes, it's different.
different, yeah. Yes. And also, I think I'll keep an eye on the this virtual teaching chat thing as well. So if, for example, you can't find either of us on Facebook, if you pop it here, I'll forward the message accordingly. So yeah, good luck, guys. You're doing amazing. Just carrying on, and you'll make it. Okay.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.